Welcome to it, sports fans. The MKT Show on Tuesday the 23rd. So I keep looking up there because there's a clock with a date. Hate to get the date wrong, Be uber embarrassing in 2021. Welcome to the MKT Show on Cliff Central Sport, of course. Great to have you with us. I am MKT, who the show is named after, and that feels good. That does feel good. To have my name in the show. Great for the ego, great for everything about me. Great to be here. Hey, it's great to be great. Had a nice day, nice little workout, had a little swim. It's a little balmy where I am. So had a good day. Got a lot of, felt productive today. So it feels good. Feels good. Really looking forward to tonight's show. Champions League night tonight. Obviously, Chelsea on and Munchen on tonight. Good stuff. Good stuff that. And listen, football and sport, again, I have to say, sport as a business has been phenomenal. I think it's always at the cutting edge. It really does drive the world forward in terms of innovation, and there's urgency in sport, right? So it's tremendous. The administrators of the top leagues should be very, very proud of themselves. Make it, ensuring that their businesses are really somewhat bulletproof. So very, very unique what's happening in sport. All things considered, very few jobs lost. And the show has rolled on, as they say in Hollywood. So big up to all the big sports, largely in Europe. I guess there are resources. And when there's resources, you can have smart people around. So shout out to all of the sports leagues, even the sports I don't watch. UFC, I'm not a big UFC guy. Love the boxing as well. Boxing's been quite a rigid business model. And then, of course, the bigger sports. Just terrific. And the American sports are starting to struggle. You see the NBA, lots of postponed games. But you got to say the football leagues have been amazing on the continent. There's association soccer. Rugby's done terrifically to come back. That's a complicated sport. You got not like 15 guys just in the starting team. That's a 50-man squad, right? And the NFL, I think, you got to say the king right now. And ultimately the Premier League showing why it is boss globally. It's been phenomenal. I mean, to ensure that 20 teams can play the roster, everything has been phenomenal. So shout out to everybody who make it happen. And hey, idiots like me get to talk about it. Well, welcome to it. Let's get into what we're talking tonight. I had my thoughts as I was, had my double cream yogurt this morning. You got to go double cream, by the way. If you're going to go yogurt, go double cream. And I thought, I touched on Jose last night. I think we'll start with that again. And I have my thoughts on just why Jose and Spurs are struggling. And something I observed while I was reading a few articles this morning on Jose and things in and around that. And then we'll finish off on the Gunners. I said I'd give my thoughts today. I've said it before, but I think I'll make it more concise. My exact thoughts on that situation and what I think should happen. So MKT Inspires, by the way, social media platforms, feel free to hit me up on there. Slide in the DMs. Don't be shy. Slide in the DMs. Might take some time, but I will reply. Otherwise, if you are old like me and you want to send essentially what is like a telegram, we call it an electronic mail or an email, feel free to email me at sport@cliffcentral.com. sport@cliffcentral.com. We are narrowing down on our new time, folks. Please stay patient. You won't have to be patient much longer, but we will certainly be coming soon to you between 12 and 2. That's midday to 2 p.m., Monday to Friday. That is coming soon. We'll announce that soon. Cliff Central Sport on all social media platforms. Cliff C Sport if you're on Twitter. Otherwise, I'm MKT Inspires on all social media platforms. All right, let's get into it. Jose and his struggles. So in evolution, I may have mentioned this. I talk about it a lot on Cliff Central podcast, Gareth Cliff's show. This is Gareth Cliff, by the way. He's here live in studio, just major social distancing. It's a massive studio in here. But I talk about this a lot. Science is probably outside of football, my core interest. I failed a lot of years and eventually got over the line in the end at university, but chemistry in particular. And we learned something in chemistry quite early on is the greatest attribute in survival. All right, because we're looking for the essence of life, and the essence of life, that there is no life without surviving, of course. But the greatest attribute, and we talk in evolutionary science, and we can talk in chemistry, the greatest attribute in survival, right, is not strength, it's not brutality, it's not being the biggest, it's not being the fastest. None of that matters at all in survival, right? It's actually it's often the reason things die. Being the biggest, being the strongest, being the fittest, being whatever. That's actually really the scientists show a terrible attribute in survival. The only thing that matters, which is why sort of microbes and fungi and things like this and survive, is adaptability. Diseases undefeated. Right? Listen, malaria has been around, it's alleged, for 10,000 years. 10,000 years. 10,000 years. Human beings can barely figure out 50 years. Adaptability. The thing about surviving in life across the board, outside of being human, adaptability. That is, forget everything else. Speed, size, nonsense, malarkey, all of it. Aesthetics, it's a form over function thing. You want to survive, learn to adapt. That is I say the greatest attribute. It's the only attribute that matters. Everything else is useless. Everything else is ego, size, strength, speed. Adapt. And we see it in the human sense, where in leadership, right, the toughest thing to do as a leader is to lead yourself. Because when you lead yourself, what do you have to constantly do? Evolve. And part of evolution, as I've just described to you, the greatness of evolution, if you want to truly, the truest sense of evolution is adaptation. You must adapt, right? The world is as it is, not how you want it to be. Malaria is 10,000 years old. Human beings, you just came on the block like 6,000 years ago, somewhere between 6 and 10, right? Homo sapien. So you're brand new to this thing. Malaria is, listen, microbes, viruses, undefeated. Undefeated. Granular, the more granular, the reason these things survive, they adapt. Listen, in life, we are who we are. And I want to get into this, right? We are who we are. And the quicker we accept that, the easier it is to adapt. Jose Mourinho, and he's a big picture guy. He's always been a big picture guy. And in football, there is a big difference between a manager, and you'll often see this in titles. There's a big difference between manager and head coach. Right? Manager, Arsene Wenger, Fergie. Coach, Carlo Ancelotti. Manager, Jose Mourinho. He's not a coach. He never has been, and I'll prove this too. Let me start off with the instance of at Real Madrid. Real Madrid fired one of their greatest ever players and managers, right? In Valdano, Jorge Valdano, unbelievable. World Cup winner, 86, of course, with Maradona for Argentina, but just like all-time legend, they love him there. Go look up Jorge Valdano after the show. Like serious guy, right? Serious, like royalty. Di Stefano, Valdano, Raul, these types of guys, royalty at Madrid. They got rid of him because he was fighting Mourinho. Mourinho wants absolute control. That's management. That's not coaching, folks. That's not middle management. That's I want the whole thing. And let me tell you why I think Mourinho is a manager as well. And there is a thread that goes through Mourinho's career. Folks, Jose Mourinho has no interest in running a dressing room. Coaches do. Coaches want to get close to their players. Coaches want to have relationships with their players, get to know them outside the field. Mourinho has no interest in that. Let me tell you how I know. I'll give you the times Jose Mourinho has been successful, and you decide. Right? We'll start off at Porto. He had one of the greatest leaders of men in modern-day football, a guy called Jorge Costa. Go and look him up. Unbelievable Portuguese legend, centre-back. Right? Came to Chelsea, had maybe England's greatest captain of all time, maybe England's greatest centre-back of all time. I'm a little on the fence. They love him, but John Terry, right? He's certainly the most successful English defender in the Premier League era. Make of him what you will. Leader of men. He then went on, I think, to have the greatest of all greats. My favorite, and I'm a little biased here, he's my favorite player of all time, El Tractore Javier Zanetti. Those are the three times Jose Mourinho has really won. Real Madrid, who did he have? Listen, at Real Madrid, he had a guy who was called a saint. Saint Iker. And Sergio Ramos. There was an evolution going on there. He even fell out with Saint Iker, Sergio Ramos. Ramos, the best centre-back of his generation. A leader of men. George Costa, John Terry, Javi Zanetti, Sergio Ramos, and Saint Iker Casillas. Those are the men who ran the dressing rooms. So what does that tell you? Jose Mourinho, 2 trebles in that time, 2 Champions League and 8 league titles with those men running the dressing room. Mourinho's got no interest in that because he's creating the environment. He's got no interest in running dressing rooms and being friends with anybody. Ask Mario Balotelli. Just ask anybody. You ask Joe Cole. I mean, Joe Cole barely fitted in if he hadn't evolved and changed his game. But he got rid of Mo Salah, Kevin De Bruyne. He had no interest in these guys. He has no interest in babysitting anybody. Kevin De Bruyne, get the hell out. I want to play, get the hell out. De Bruyne is De Bruyne now, but needed a little pampering. Mourinho ain't about that. What he wants is leaders of men, and then he can take care of the bigger stuff ensuring in and around dressing rooms. Because the rest of the stuff around the dressing rooms, that's always the problem. If you're a Man United fan, you get this. George Costa, John Terry, Javi Zanetti, Saint Iker Casillas, and Sergio Ramos. The times he's failed, Man United and Spurs, right? Harry Maguire and Hugo Lloris. By the way, if you didn't know, Hugo Lloris is the Spurs captain. You're probably wondering, do Spurs even have a captain? Mourinho can't work with that because now Jose Mourinho has to do 2 things. He wants to run the executive side and ensure everything else is great. Now he's got to run the dressing room because Harry Maguire can't keep himself out of a Mykonos jail. Hugo Lloris, I mean, are you kidding me? Folks, those are not leaders of men. And Jose Mourinho cannot work with that. And he's never shown an interest in doing that. He has never shown an interest. He doesn't pamper. He creates environments for men to go and succeed. Lead yourself. But that needs a very special type of leader. Because what it means is that then the dressing room needs to run itself. And that's hard. That's hard. Listen, when you've got George Costa, John Terry, Javi Zanetti, Sergio Ramos, that's a little easier. Right, they have their hands on the throats of the dressing room and the pulse of the dressing room, and they will lead. Don't worry about it, Jose. You and your coaches just go and do tactics and do the rest of the stuff. You don't have to coach. We got this from here. It needs grown-ups. It needs grown-ups. But as in life, I think in everything, folks, in every breakup, when things are horrible, and I know it's hard to hear this, especially for men. I can only speak for men. It's always her fault, right? When you break up, when things are hard, she's crazy, the mother-in-law, blah, blah, blah. Folks, in every single horrible situation, it's always 50-50. It takes 2 to tango. Nobody gets divorced by themselves. Nobody grows apart by themselves. It's always both parts. Jose Mourinho, and it's tough. And it's always tougher when you've been successful. If you're not successful, it's easy to change. When you've been successful, it's really, really hard to change. What Jose may have to do is go, I may need to adapt, and that is so hard. This is why companies like younger people, old people, are impossible to turn around. And it's actually a calcification. Neurologically, the mind gets calcified, they reckon, after about 55. It's very, very hard. There's special ones, Oprah, Elon Musk, these people that keep evolving. 45. I mean, Oprah's worth what, $10 billion? She's doing new stuff all the time. It's impossible. Who is this person? It's impossible. Oprah's got what? She's got her own network. She's still doing new stuff. You check out Oprah. Like, Oprah's one of my idols. I love her. Not so much her content, but just her ability to think. What is Oprah's great trick? She started as a television host, daytime host. She then has a network. Even with the network, go and check out Oprah. I Need a Magazine. My social media. She's in deals with Facebook. Oprah's everywhere all the time, constantly evolving. You know, I think everybody here knows the older you get, you look in the mirror, these young people. Folks, a friend of mine, great advice she always gives me, stay relevant. Jose Mourinho possibly hasn't heard that. Listen, 2 trebles, 2 Champions League titles, and 8 league titles. It's hard to go and tell a man like that, shed the skin. But in every relationship, both sides need to be big enough to say we both need to grow. Now, here's what's interesting for me. I don't know if Spurs have the chutzpah right now to say this might take 2 or 3 seasons and there's going to be blood in the water publicly. Because what are they going to hear? Man United were right, blah, blah, blah. Chelsea were right. The Real Madrid were right to get rid of him. But if Spurs want to win, swallow the bitter pill this season, swallow the bitter pill next season, because it's not going to be able to change now. You can't change 12 guys this season, because Mourinho needs to find his types of guys, because he's looking for George Costa, John Terry, Javi Zanetti, these men that will lead the dressing room, because he wants to manage at the executive level, head the scouting. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to do this, look after Cristiano Ronaldo in the dressing room. He fell out with Cristiano Ronaldo, possibly the most professional sportsman of all time. Mourinho, by the second year, they didn't speak the whole second season, even though they went on to set up a La Liga points total record. Mourinho fell out with Cristiano Ronaldo. He has no interest in having relationships with players. That's not his thing. And folks, it's okay. He's a manager. But what he will have to do, Jose, it's a different time. He may have to adapt a little bit. He may have to evolve a little bit. Get a younger assistant manager, because he's got the same team he's had his whole career since Porto. Listen, he lost Rui Faria, who is his brother-in-law, of course, married to his sister. That's one thing. But he may have to go and get a young, hungry. He may have to go and get John Terry, somebody who can relate to the players now. Bill Belichick up in New England, he's got his sons now. Steve, they're a little younger. They're the next generation of Belichick's. They evolve. You must evolve. Adaptation, folks, is the greatest thing in surviving. But I think if you're Spurs, swallow the bitter pill. It's hard, because all you're going to catch is Mourinho's finished. Mourinho's not finished. Everybody needs to be managed. Mourinho needs to manage himself now. At the end of the season, he'll take stock. He'll know he needs to grow. Get a younger manager. From the looks of things, his wife's a really strong person. These are the people he'll have to talk to, and they'll help him. They've got to bully Mourinho, because Mourinho is not the guy you can kind of pamper. You've seen that personality, a man of steel. He came out in the papers and said his methods are second to none globally. He ain't changing soon on his own. But he is going to need to adapt. It's a new time. Folks, I struggle with it as well. I'm a very rigid, boring person. I am. I don't want to. I'm old school. Like, I was raised by a strict dad. And just get on with it type of person. Listen, I'm about to get on TikTok. I didn't have Instagram till like 2 years ago. I never had Instagram. I'm old school. I am boring. But a friend of mine came to me and she said, listen, especially if you work in this game, stay relevant. Best advice I've ever heard. Adapt. Listen to new music. Don't be proud. Don't become your parents. Don't be proud of listening to music from the 90s and noughties and say, I'm cool because I'm old school. That ain't cool, dude. Especially if you're in a public-facing space. And listen, my friend she pulls no punches. She says, stay relevant. And hey, grateful to this day. Jose Mourinho, stay relevant. Because very, very soon, he may go the way of the dodo if he doesn't evolve. Folks, you got to adapt. Evolution. If you want to evolve, you must be willing to adapt. And by the way, evolution's painful. For those who are into the sciences, you can go and look this up. But the greatest tool in evolution that we've had, and particularly as Homo sapiens, but as all animals, pain is the greatest tool for adaptation, right? If you go and read up on pain and evolution and how closely linked they are. So it's painful to change. It's painful to evolve. It's painful to adapt. The greatest trait in survival is adaptation. All right. That's it. That's it for Spurs. I think that's going to be a whole situation. We'll talk a lot more about it. We'll take a comment, and then I'll move on to my thoughts with the Gooners and Mikel Arteta. Jesse Randlehoff says, for the special one, from the special one to the happy one to the sad one. Yeah, he did say he's the happy one now. It's tough. It's tough if you're a Spurs fan, but swallow the bitter pill. You're not going to do better than Jose Mourinho. You're not going to do better than Mourinho. And where you want to go, he knows what it takes to get there. But Mourinho will have to as well. He'll have to swallow a bitter pill. He's got to evolve and adapt. All right, let's talk about the Gunners. Listen, I said I'd talk about the Gunners yesterday. I talked about it a little bit. So between my 20s and 28, so I stopped my my wild days at about 28. So I stopped drinking at about 28. I'm 34 now. It's about 6 years ago, 2013. Well, a little bit more than that. 2013, I stopped drinking at the age of about 27. It's more now. 8 years ago, huh? I am getting on. My point is this, I made bad decisions from the age of about 17. And I'm middle class. My life was fine. I had two parents who worked their backside off to give me a decent life. I always had a bed, a fridge, food, fine. Like spoiled brat, really. That's what happened. I mean, I don't come from the money, but it was middle class. It was fine. I made some horrendous decisions from it started, I'd say grade 11 till I was 27. So that's 10 years of bad decisions, like horrendous life decisions. And that erodes lots of things. It erodes your character. It erodes who you want to be. It ruined relationships in my life. It happened. I'm not going to run from it. I'm not ashamed of it. It is what it is. But one thing I know is that bad decisions are impossible to overcome, because once you start making them, it becomes who you are. And bad decisions follow you around, by the way. Is every time I was making bad decisions, I thought, no one will ever see. Tell a lie here, make something up here. No one will ever see. But what happens is it erodes your character, and then it affects everything about you. And people aren't stupid, because you start doing horrible things starts to become who you are. And as people grow up, they're like, we don't want to be associated with that. Nobody wants to be associated with people that are always making bad decisions. Nobody wants to be with the girl or the guy, right? Maybe at 18, it's fun. 20, it's fun. At 25, no girl wants to be around the guy who's smashed on a Sunday. No. Like maybe a girl, no woman, no respectable woman, nobody you'd want to be in a relationship with. Nobody wants to be around the guy who's always passed out drunk at a nightclub or is involved in fights. By the way, telling you personal stories. This happened in my life. Nobody wants to be around the guy or girl who's fighting, throwing up at the pub. I'm sorry, that's hilarious at 18. Intolerable at 25. Nobody wants to be around that person. Nobody wants to be around that person at 26, 27 especially. I know, I was that guy. Folks, bad decisions are impossible to overcome. The great Stephen Covey says, you cannot talk your way out of something you behaved yourself into. I didn't say that. Stephen Covey said it. He wrote 7 Habits for Highly Effective People or whatever. Like legendary, right? You cannot talk your way out of something you behaved yourself into. Here's the thing. In football, I'll tell you, having been on the other side, I've said it enough, and I'll keep saying it forever. I am the drunk guy at the pub who keeps sort of telling you about his past. But I've been on the other side of top-level professional football. You can lie to coaches. You can lie to the media. You can lie to social media. Let me tell you one thing you can't lie to. You can't lie to talented people. You cannot lie to players. Even now, I'm 34 now. I can go and play with anybody at the top level. I'll tell you if somebody can play or not, if they're the real deal or not, because I've seen it. You can't lie to players. We know who's good and who isn't, because it takes us one training session. And if somebody's a step ahead, if somebody's mentally, they're a step ahead. Always mentally, if somebody's a step ahead, they see the picture. You'll often hear British commentators say, this guy sees the picture. We know. Players know. I say we like I still play, but I've played. We know. In one training session, you know who the best is. And the hierarchy sets itself. Ability. And by the way, folks, let me tell you how you know if you're the best player. The better you are, the further forward you play. If you don't watch sport, let me just tell you how it works in football or soccer. The further forward in the field you play, the better player you are. There we go. Solved. You don't need to ask anything else. You can't lie to players. You can lie to the media. You can lie to your friends. You can get a bunch of people around you to be yes men. Let me tell you something. When Arsenal Football Club, this is players they got rid of over the last 17 years at their peak. Tell me if you recognize any of these names. I'm not even going to tell you what they went on to achieve, right? Because that's just, pouring salt into a newly open wound. A guy called Thierry Henry, heard of him? Patrick Vieira, Cesc Fabregas, Ashley Cole, Gael Clichy, Bakary Sagna, Emmanuel Adebayor, who didn't want to leave Arsenal, by the way. They still forced him out the door. Still forced him out the door for 25 million. Didn't want to leave. That's on record. Robin van Persie, Henry, Vieira, Fabregas, Cole, Sagna, Clichy, Adebayor, Van Persie, all sold, not when they were done, at their peak, at the peak of their powers. Folks, I used to get hammered every day, like 5 times a week, right? I never quite got into the drinking by myself thing. That was never my thing. I know what bad decisions are. And let me tell you something. Bad decisions are impossible to overcome. The only way to overcome bad decisions is to stop making them. But when you stop making them, that doesn't mean that your character isn't still what you were, right? You got to turn it around. You actually have to turn it around. Arsenal have been making bad decisions for 17 years. Henry, Vieira, Fabregas, Cole, Clichy, Sanya, Adebayor, Van Persie. When you get rid of assets like that at their peak, I don't want to hear Arsene Wenger's economic excuses. That is not the fans. That is not the club's problem. Don't leave Highbury then. Don't leave Highbury. You had the Invincibles at Highbury. Like, figure it out. Nobody cares. No one wants to hear about Arsene Wenger's economic perfection. Nobody cares. Chelsea, Man United, pump the money into it. Man City, I've never heard anybody at Man City telling me about the economic status of the club and having to pay off. Listen, Arsene Wenger was the highest paid manager in the league for a long time. Figure it out. Arteta is having to undo 17 years of bad decisions. I made 10 years of bad decisions. I'm still trying to undo some of them. You cannot make bad decisions for 17 years and then think somebody can turn it around in 18 months. And by the way, Arteta is the only guy who's had the chutzpah, the balls, to tear down the Wenger empire. He's the only guy, because Emre tried to be more of the same with little tweaks. It really, listen, you're putting a plaster over it. You got to rip the plaster off. And in medicine, you call it symptomatic healing. That's all Emre was. He was more of the same with a little tweak, right? Stop healing the symptoms, right? The symptoms is what's on the surface. Go to the core. Go to the cause of it, and you're going to have to dig deep for that, deep in the wound, and rip out the leech. Because that's what's happened over the last 17 years. And that's painful, folks. It is painful. Listen, when I stopped drinking and I had to go on a road trip with somebody, that was painful. He's a successful guy. He took me on a road trip, and he asked me some painful truths. He's known me since I was a little pickaninny. He asked me some painful questions after that trip. We were, we've been bros for a long time. I had to face some things. Arsenal are going to have to face some things. 17 years of bad decisions. And if you don't believe me, folks, they just made Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang not only their lead striker, but their captain. It's clear that's an awful decision. But it's not Arsenal's fault, because all they know how to do, and as somebody who's made bad decisions, once you're making bad decisions, all you know is how to make bad decisions. We all have nephews, nieces, girlfriends, boyfriends. When we go to bed, we go, I just wish this person would get out of their own way. Haven't you thought that about someone? And they don't know how to. Well, trust me, I've been there. So I'm not, this isn't something I'm making up. I've lived it. This is my life. You got to get out your own way sometimes. And that's hard. It's so easy to say it, isn't it? Talk is cheap. Money buys the whiskey. Arsenal have been making bad decisions for 17 years. They expect Mikel Arteta to turn that around in 17 months. In what, 17 months, 18 months? It's lunacy. It is lunacy. The Aubameyang thing is now showing it's Arsenal through and through. I told you before, I didn't understand when Aubameyang, at the very peak at Dortmund, number one, why Dortmund would want to let him go. Right? Because he wasn't trying to force his way out. But number two, when they did let him go, folks, big players don't move in January. Name the last massive marquee player who had no controversy to move in January. I don't mean he became successful like Vidic or whatever. Luis Suarez was biting people at Ajax, and they were ready to let him go. Right? Fernando Torres was on the bubble, right, when he moved in January. But name the player who gets to move in January. No club lets go of their biggest star in that January window. No club. No serious club. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Chelsea, Man City, they don't sell players in January. Folks, it doesn't happen. Because you know why? You need maximum value. And to get maximum value, you want it to be in that winter or the summer transfer window, because you can sit down and eyeball the other guy and really squeeze that last 10 million pounds out of him. Take it from 130 to 150 million pounds, 140 million pounds, right? That's what the big clubs do. Aubameyang moved in January. The price tag wasn't massive, but there was no competition. And there was a guy going from Dortmund, a solid Champions League team where he's winning and they love him, to a broken club like Arsenal. So already that decision didn't make sense. But what didn't make sense even more was, where were Bayern Munich in that? Don't tell me they had Lewandowski. Listen, they'll buy anyone to pile on top. Where were Real Madrid? Where were Barcelona? They needed a striker at the time. David Villa was at the end. Luis Suarez was on the bubble. Where were Chelsea? Where were Man City? Why didn't they go in for him? You can't tell me Jesus can't be replaced by Aubameyang at that time. I'd rather have Jesus now. Don't give me the goals. It's nonsense. I've told you, I don't care about goals. If all you care about is goals, Kevin Phillips once won the European Golden Boot in a season. Danny Ings is as good as anything going right now if it's just about goals. Aubameyang has been sulking all season. Folks, he made a bad decision to leave Dortmund to go to Arsenal. Arsenal made an even worse decision by giving him a bumper contract. Right? What did they do with Mesut Ozil as well? Awful decision. Because Mesut Ozil left Real Madrid. Nobody leaves Real Madrid unless there's a problem. They were happy. They get the hell out of here. Arsenal signed him. Aubameyang. Nobody wanted Aubameyang. None of the big clubs wanted Aubameyang. Why? You're seeing why now. And Arsenal paid him another bumper contract. It doesn't make sense. The rule of Chelsea, Roman Abramovich, once you get above 30, he doesn't extend the contract by more than 1 year. John Terry, after his 30th birthday, couldn't get an extension of more than 1 year at Chelsea. Go and look it up. I'm not making that up. John Terry at Chelsea. That's how big clubs operate. Sergio Ramos right now, the greatest centre-back of his generation. Real Madrid won't give him a new contract. He wants 3 years. We'll give you a year. Florentino Perez ain't moving. You want to leave? Real Madrid will be fine without you. Get the hell out of here. Arsenal have been making bad decisions for a long time. Let me tell you what happens when you make bad decisions, folks, in life. It affects your self-confidence. When you have no confidence, you will be duped into doing anything. Arsenal are a broken club. It is not Arteta's fault. It is 17 years of horrendous decisions. It is no self-confidence. When you have no self-confidence, you'll do anything. You'll pander to anybody. Now you've seen two horrible decisions in a row. Giving Ozil that bumper contract, right? They had to pay 2 years of it for no service. And Aubameyang now, I'm sorry, is a disaster. It is a disaster. That performance, the disappearance against Man City proves what I've been saying for 3-4 months now. Folks, Aubameyang is really Tammy Abraham with a nice car collection. I'm just telling you what I see. I'm telling you what I see. Arsenal Football Club, you know what I could compare them to? If you've got I've got one or two, many in my family who are addicted to drugs. I'll tell you something, Arsenal are the very same as a heroin addict. They're in a spiral. And when you make bad decisions, you don't know how to get out of it. Arsenal can't get out their own way. Ozil, new contract. Why? Make him the highest paid player in the history of your club. He's a headache. Aubameyang, new contract. Don't make sense. There's a reason big clubs didn't want him. Folks, relax. Write the season off. Arsenal aren't winning anything this season. Forget about Europa League. It doesn't matter if you beat Benfica. Listen, you're going to have to overcome, Leicester, Inter. Come on. Man United, you're not beating United over 2 legs if you get them. What's that? Leicester, Man United. No, it ain't going to happen. You aren't beating those two. Not sure if you're going to beat Benfica. Arsenal are a mess. Mikel Arteta is not the problem, but he's got the balls to tear down the old disaster that was Arsene Wenger's era. I'm sorry, you got to swallow that pill. Give him the time. He ain't the problem. He ain't the problem. We all know people, folks. Don't lie. Let's not lie. We all have people in our family. They've been making bad decisions. And we all have partners. Maybe bring it closer to home. Often you'll say, I just wish this person would get out their own way. Just get out your own way. That's what the Gunners have to do. Stop signing people that people don't want. Stop signing Ozil. Stop giving money to people like Aubameyang. Listen, you know when you get... I just want to finish off on this. If you want to destroy culture, let me tell you what you do. You pay good employees great money. Don't pay good employees great money. Great's impossible. Every company should very rarely be breaking the bank for anybody. Because great is impossible. There are maybe 15 footballers in the world that are worth breaking the bank for. Not one of them is at Arsenal. They broke the bank for Ozil. They broke the bank for Aubameyang. Folks, 17 years of bad decisions. This is what Arsenal are now. An institution that makes horrible decisions. Now it's not an anomaly. If I said to you, if I came to you and I said these names at their peak, with everything you know, Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, Cesc Fabregas, Ashley Cole, Gael Clichy, Bakary Sagna, Emmanuel Adebayor, Robin van Persie. By the way, all of these people could have played together in the same team. Just want to make that very clear. They could have all played in the same team, all of them at their peak. If I told you those people had left their clubs at their peak, you'd go, it's madness, you're talking nonsense. If I told you it was the same club, this is in the space of 5 years. Thierry Henry, Vieira, Fabregas, Cole, Clichy, Sagna, Adebayor, Van Persie. You'd say, fire whoever's in charge of that and get them checked out psychologically, right? That's what you'd say to me. You'd say it's impossible. If I told you Mesut Ozil was made the highest paid player, and then you go and make Aubameyang the highest paid player, and then you go and make Aubameyang the captain the very next season, you'd say, take that person out to the reservation and have them shot. Right? You'd say, you got a lunatic in charge. Folks, bad decisions are impossible to overcome. The only way to overcome them is to stop making them. Arsenal haven't stopped, and they've gone on again. Because you know what the problem with this Aubameyang call is? It's going to affect Arsenal in 3 years because the contract's 3 years long. You can't get out from under this. And now you've seen money doesn't change people. It makes them more of who they are. Aubameyang, this is why nobody wanted you from Dortmund. This is why you could move in January. Sulking, pouting. Oh, the dressing room, my friends are being let go. We saw what's happening at the beginning of the season. And then you go and make him captain because Arsenal has no self-confidence. People that have been making bad decisions for their whole lives, which I was for a decade. I'm not a moralist. I'm not about moral sanctity. I've walked this. I can talk about it. I'm comfortable. Arsenal are exactly what I was for 10 years. So I know it when I see it. When you make bad decisions, you have no self-confidence, folks. And then when you have no self-confidence, you will pay anybody and follow anybody. You'll join a cult if you must. Luckily, I never joined a cult. Like Arsenal are nowhere. What's the culture at Arsenal? Making Ozil and Aubameyang your highest paid players. What's the culture? Arteta's trying to turn it around. Give him the time. He's not the problem. I don't know if Arsenal are going to be patient enough, just like Spurs, another club with no confidence and no self-worth. Arsenal, you can't make 17 years of bad decisions and have self-worth, right? And we know when you're desperate, you'll make bad decisions. Never make a decision when you're desperate. It's like I tell people, a cousin of mine used to tell me, don't go shopping when you're hungry. Never make a decision when you're desperate. Don't buy a car when you're desperate. Relax. It's impossible to make good decisions when you're desperate. And Arsenal have been doing that for 17 years. It is madness. It is madness to blame Arteta. It is the institution that's broken. Give him time. Give him time. All right, those are my thoughts on the Gunners and Spurs. I find it lunacy. Like I look on the internet, people talking about Arteta getting fired. What are you talking about? Being 11th, right, has been coming for some time. You saw it under Arsene Wenger. Even at the end, he was clinging on. And then it's just been Europa League since. Wenger stayed 10 years too long. You know it. I know it. By the way, on that list, I didn't put Alex Song, but okay, he was what he was. All right. Listen, I don't know how to help Arsenal fans, but that's what it is, right? It's not Arteta. Whoever you bring in, you could bring in prime Arrigo Sacchi. He ain't fixing this mess. Folks, I don't care how talented you are. I've said this before. It is impossible. I don't care how talented you are. It is impossible to overcome chaos. Institutional chaos is impossible to overcome. Which is why my old lady and people that advise me have always said, don't chase money, chase leadership. Because where there's leadership, there's organization. And you know where there's great leadership, there's great work to do. Where there's great work to do, there's money. Chase leadership. And Arsenal have none. And haven't had for 17 years, by the way. It is embarrassing. You don't believe me? They've just fired, 2 COOs in 3 seasons. It's chaos. Nobody can overcome Arsenal. Nobody can overcome what's happening at Arsenal. Give Arteta time. All right. Jesse Randolph, do you think a football club success begins and ends with owners and their goals? I do not. I do not. That's not enough. So I've always said my rule is you have to have these three things to win. I'm afraid you've got to have the Holy Trinity. Ownership is one part. Manager, the next part. The most important person, I believe, at a football club, the captain. Can't win without a captain. Because ultimately, the assets that need to be able to or have those, you can give him, you can have the greatest buildings, the most money. If your players aren't all facing in the right direction, it is meaningless. Folks, and if you don't believe me, let me tell you of a little team called the Los Galacticos. Everybody thinks this team was unstoppable, unbeatable. Are you aware that Zinedine Zidane only has one La Liga title and one Champions League title? People think that team was like some like United under Fergie kind of thing. Zinedine Zidane has one Champions League title, by the way. One. That's probably the most talented team ever compiled. They were a disaster at the back, but okay. And quite frankly, they had no captain. I liked Fernando Hierro, but he wasn't it. Even Spain weren't successful under him. Spain got Carles Puyol, and okay, you saw what happened. Right? They had Carles Puyol. He's he's the guy. Puyol's the guy. Barcelona, on the bubble, Carlos Puyol became captain. Pep Guardiola became coach. All right, we're off. Because they've always had Xavi. They always had Iniesta. They had all these guys, right? They had all of these guys. But then they got Rijkaard the first time round. And then they got Carlos Puyol. And then it was liftoff. And then they add the nice things. So the Holy Trinity. Ownership, yes, important. I always say, the best owners, deep pockets, shut the hell up. I don't want to hear from you. Roman Abramovich is an anomaly. And so is Florentino Perez. But deep pockets, shut the hell up, get out the way. Give the manager money. Number two, the manager has to be in place, of course. But number three, the most important for me, you cannot win. Folks, even in your own office, even if you work at the nicest bank, at the biggest marketing agency, if your direct manager sucks, who's the captain of the team, even if you've got 15 billion rand a year, dollars a year, doesn't matter. You can't win. You can't win. You know at your office. You know at your office. If your management sucks, you can't win. So ownership, manager, of course, but the captain must be in place. And Jesse, I mean, let's quickly look at it. If you're a Premier League fan, who's the teams that have won and won consistently? Man United. Brian Robson, heard of him? Roy Keane, heard of him? Nemanja Vidic. We win, right? Chelsea, John Terry, heard of him? The great Arsenal. Tony Adams, Patrick Vieira. Thank you. And even then, because Arsenal weren't like this, even at Highbury, weren't this financial juggernaut. They sold Nicolas Anelka for I think it was 25 million pounds. For 11 million pounds, they got a guy called Thierry Henry. And then they got some lanky basketball player kid from France called Patrick Vieira. And it was a go. Right? You had Adams, you had Vieira. Vincent Kompany. And you win, right? You got those guys, you win. It doesn't work if you're missing one of those, by the way. It doesn't work if you're missing one of those. Look at Everton. They got all the money in the world. They got the coach. They got the ownership. But they got Michael Keane as captain. That ain't going to do it. That ain't going to do it. By the way, Barcelona, look at them. I know they're saying they broke, but they got the ownership. They got the manager. Leo Messi's not a captain. He's a player. He's not a captain. Be honest. Be honest. Real Madrid, all the money in the world right now. They've got the ownership. They don't have the manager. They certainly got the captain in Sergio Ramos. In order to win, you have to have all three. They cannot exist. You cannot have a bad one. Even Leicester, when they won, Wes Morgan, sensational leader. So hope that answers your question. Jesse Randolph, are Arsenal are shambles, but on their day they can beat anyone. Don't forget about the FA Cup. I haven't forgotten about the FA Cup, but you haven't been in the Champions League in forever. So if the standard is the FA Cup, cool. But anybody can win cups. Birmingham, for goodness sake, won the League Cup, right? Famously beating, I think, Arsenal. By the way, Portsmouth have won the FA Cup. They beat Man United in the final. That was on the way to a treble. They stopped United from winning a treble that season. So, yeah, okay, unless if Arsenal's standard is the FA Cup, then I will not forget. But I'd like to think the Arsenal would like to be. Surely they want to win the league. The best teams win the league, folks. It goes League, Champions League, FA Cup, right? That's the order. League, Champions League, FA Cup. Jess says, I like Arteta. Arsenal fans change their opinions after every match. It's true. Listen, it's a reactionary time, right? It's a reactionary time, especially when we're emotional, folks. And we're all emotional. I get emotional. You know, we don't make our best decisions then. And that's sport, right? Hey, that's business, baby. Arteta's also got to deliver. He's got to deliver, and I think he has. And by the way, I mean, he's given you Smith Rowe. He's given Bukayo Saka a chance. All I'm saying is, whoever comes in as Arsenal manager, please don't expect him to turn it around now. By the way, it's 17 years of rot, of character erosion. Don't expect him to turn it around in 18 months. That ain't how it works. You know, the great in neuroscience, they say, if you hear no or like a negative thing, you have to hear the positive affirmation 18 times. I read a paper a couple of years ago in order to get you back to your sort of neurological homeostasis. So if Arsenal have been making bad decisions for 17 years, give it about a decade to fix it. And I know that's hard to hear. Folks, if you don't believe me, Nokia, how long have they been trying to bounce back? BlackBerry, they're about 8 models into the next thing, and they still can't compete. Kodak died. You start making bad decisions, the rest of the world doesn't stand still. Arsenal's problem is they're probably in the most competitive environment in the world, right? In the world. Tech and sport are the most competitive environments on earth. The problem for Arsenal is that it also isn't like tech, right? There's kind of just Microsoft and Apple and a couple of guys in Silicon Valley, right? There's you know, in movies or in the film thing, there's Netflix, maybe Amazon and Hulu. They're all trying. There's about 5 or 6 juggernauts. The problem for Arsenal is there's 6 or 7 now who didn't stop when Arsenal have been making bad decisions for 17 years. Chelsea have been making great decisions. Man City been making great decisions. Man United, for all of their failings, have at least been making better decisions than Arsenal. They didn't stop moving forward. So as you went 17 steps backwards, the other clubs went 17 steps forward. So you're not even at neutral. So Arsenal are going to have to make 17 positive steps forward to get to 0, right? So that's going to take however long it takes. While you're making those 17 steps forward, Man City, Chelsea, they're making another 17 steps forward. It's going to be nearly impossible to catch up. So, yeah, I hear you there. Listen, whoever it is, Arteta is not the problem. Take Arteta out. And if you're working right now in a place and your company's chaos in management, apply for a new job. I don't care how smart you think you are. You will not overcome institutional chaos. Just please, grow up. Arsenal have never grown up. That's the problem, is they had Daddy Wenger and they thought it was fine forever. Man United fans are learning this right now, by the way. They had it so good with Fergie. They've had 4 managers in 7 years. And it's chaos. Man United, by the way, a lot of people don't realize this. They've been in the Europa League 6 out of the last 8 seasons. It's been institutional chaos. Fergie was Mourinho for United. He wasn't a coach. He was a manager. He had absolute control, and he was a shark, boy. And there's a guy who was willing to evolve. People thought, there's no way Fergie can do better than that 99 team. Nah, there's no way. Built another one. Nani, come in here. They said he'd never work with flair players. Cristiano Ronaldo, get in here. Well, you'll never find another Cantona, they said. Rooney, get in here. Tevez. Yeah, you'll never work with Tevez. Get in here. We'll make it work. We want to win. I'll set the culture. We went 3. Listen, everybody said nobody will ever three-peat again after that 1919. Fergie, meet me outside. Yo, cash me outside, Fergie says. Right? He had the institution, right, always evolving. United. What was the great thing? If you haven't read Ferdinand's book, Rio's book, Fergie said as soon as they won the title, him, Scholes, it was actually in Fergie's book, says the players were in the change room while they were celebrating. The players were saying to him, Roy Keane, he says Roy Keane's the greatest he's ever had, this Fergie. He says Roy Keane, after they were winning the treble, Roy Keane was, while guys were spraying champagne, Roy Keane was at him, who are we signing next? Adapt. You got to adapt. You've got to adapt. That's what the greats do. That's what United did for so long. That's what Fergie, he created that environment, right? He wanted sharks. Rio Ferdinand, Vidic, Evra, these sharks, apex predators. Arsenal were busy selling Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, Gael Clichy, apex predators, Ashley Cole. And if you don't think those players were great, by the way, they all went elsewhere, won Champions League, multiple titles, set the world alight. The one, I think, the coup de grace is Robin van Persie, right? Leaving very next season to your enemy. Is there a worse decision in the world? I don't think I've ever seen a worse one in sport. To your enemy. And he fired United to Fergie's last title. Fergie sails into the sun with your guy that you made. You made Van Persie. Right? The one season Van Persie wasn't injured. He fixed his injuries. Because the season before, remember at Arsenal, Van Persie was unstoppable. And then he said, Van Persie spoke about it if you haven't seen his interview. He said he went into Wenger's office and he said, what's the plan to sign players? Wenger, after 10 minutes, Wenger told him and he said, get me the hell out of here. Van Persie said that. Go and look up the interview. So, yeah, listen, it is what it is. C'est la vie. All right. Listen, you could have been anywhere with anybody tonight. I cannot wait to watch the Champions League, about an hour away. It should be fun. I'm MKT. This is the MKT Show. If you'd like to get a hold of me, MKT Inspires. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter. Slide in the DMs. Otherwise, email sport@cliffcentral.com. For tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that's Gareth Cliff, who is here. Absolutely loves sport, by the way. Before you go, push like, share, subscribe the show. Be a friend, tell a friend. Hey, tell your friends, hey, there's a guy who likes sport. You like sport? Listen to this guy. Listen to this show. What do you think? So be a friend, tell a friend. Like, share, subscribe. Cliff Central Sport on all social media platforms. Again, I'm MKT Inspires. That's Mike Kilo Tango. MKT Inspires on all social media platforms. Otherwise, sport@cliffcentral.com. It's been fun. Great show. Please click like if you like the show. If you don't like it, this didn't even happen. Just move on with whatever you were doing before this. Ladies and gentlemen, for tonight, though, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm MKT Sport, Cliff, the MKT Show, Cliff Central Sport. It has been a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. But for now, we are the hell out of here.